Hey, just before we get into this video, if you've already watched the video about the cottage, then you'll have seen the prices and the breakdowns for all the work that happens outside. That happens at the beginning of this video. So if you want to skip all that, just fast forward to the next chapter. In a previous video, we broke down just how much it cost to renovate the cottage. We shared all the numbers and all the lessons we learned along the way renovating that property. If you want to know whether it was worth our time or if we'd have been better off doing a 12-month stint at McDonald's, you can check out that video up here. But today, we're taking a look at more of the numbers and sharing more of the lessons that we've learned renovating the house. Today, we are once again joined by Adam Callow. Adam was around during a lot of the early stage renovations of both of these properties, dealt with a lot of the logistical side of things.
And when it got hard, I just ran away.
Yeah, basically. Adam, before we go inside, what was your impressions when you came to a finished property?
It never kind of felt like finished up until like the last moment. It kind of like,
Definitely
it felt like really hard work for like 90% of it, and then the last 10%, everything just started to come together. And to be honest, really proud. Like walking through today, it'd be really fun to show you guys exactly what's gone on, but proud is probably the easiest word to use for this.
Before we jump inside, it probably makes sense to maybe just start outside and follow the process of the tour of the property.
Yep.
So there was a lot of stuff outside before we even ventured inside and started ripping things out. So can you share a bit of insight on the work that was involved out here?
Yep.
And then like share some of the numbers that that we had to spend.
We didn't have enough time to do as much diligence as we wanted on the property. So we wanted to kind of like pull this on the market and get it done before other people were buying it. But one of the first things we did is actually went up into the attic and looked at the beams. And that was our first shocker of the whole property. Like we went into the attic and looked at some of the trusses, and they were just in an horrendous state that we actually outright refused to. We kind of stopped all work on the property and said nothing can happen until we fix the roof. We couldn't have sold it in the state it was in. We had an amazing team come in, took about 3 weeks. It was £18,500 to get the full roof redone, but it doesn't look any different. So you like spend money and it's
that
like,
was a very disheartening thing. I was like, it looks the same as when we started.
yeah, and then you're speaking to the roofer, he's like, what do you mean it looks the same? Like that waves out, and I'm like, spend 18.5 grand and you expect some results. But basically what they did is they took all the tiles off the roof and basically rebuilt the roof structure to make it safe.
So how much was the overall cost of just this outside groundworks, landscaping, everything included? Because I think it was quite blurry as to where the work started and stopped, right?
I guess quick build on that is certain parts of the job were based on price work. So actually, how much is it? Give us a quote, fixed price, get the job done. And we don't care then whether it takes them 2 days or 2 weeks, we just pay for a result. But some of the work on the job is price work, generate a quote, accept the quote, get the job done, pay the bill. Because there were so many unknowns with the garden, we couldn't put it on a price. So it ended up being a day rate. So in terms of like how that worked out, it wasn't like, oh, the paving is X, the retaining wall was Y, and don't forget it's not just here on the front of the property as well. Yeah. All in all, we spent £35,400 on what we've defined as landscaping. That excludes the Brett porcelain paving, because that was supplied by our friends over at Brett Landscaping. But for the gardens, the wall, everything you can see outside, 35,400 quid.
Let's jump inside because there's plenty more to go. He's already gone. Let's go inside. So we're now in the utility room of the house. This is where we started on the grand tour of this whole property. I think it looks fantastic. Just as a jumping off point, we've got a Baxi boiler here, but I guess to go one step higher, this whole property and both properties obviously had to have brand new heating systems. Let's go straight into the numbers. What was it like? How much did it cost to do a full heating system in the house? And I guess that includes everything from boiler to radiators and just all the pipe work. And I guess the showers come into that, or is that completely different?
So when think about the heating system, that's sort of everything that's like gas fed. So we keep the plumbing budget was very much the bathrooms. We had an old boiler actually about there, and we've had to take all of that out and then redo all the pipe work. So it's interesting because again, it's stuff you can't see. You can see the rads and bits like that. So in terms of costing, this excludes the Baxi heat only boiler, the Baxi combi, and again, this price is across both properties. And we have a Megaflow cylinder upstairs as well. So for the rads, the labor, copper is expensive. How much is a bundle of this as an example?
That is about £200.
That bundle there is £200? And you trusted me with any of this? Wow.
You're paying for it, so.
Valid point. I didn't realise that. Then Chris starts letting me start playing with it and cutting it, and I'm like destroying £50 worth of copper at a time. It was £12,750 plus 2 boilers and 1 cylinder.
I guess just as a reminder there that sounds like a big old number, but when you consider this is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, there's quite a lot of work that's actually gone into that.
Probably some of my learnings when I'm thinking about renovation is we kind of only associate cost to like the big things. Actually, all the little fixtures, fittings, pipeworks adds up really fast.
There was a big investment put on the heating system, but what you're actually getting is a much more economical system now. So when you're dealing with a 20, 30 plus year old boiler, much less economical, especially at today's energy prices and the size of this property and the age of it. A more economical heating system is going to save you money in the long run.
The heating needed to be done. The electrics were absolutely shot. I think there was a fuse board outside of the cottage. It all needed to be redone. We couldn't cut corners there. Thanks to our friends over at Baxi. Appreciate you guys supplying the boilers. There's some amazing content on the channel talking about that if you're interested in learning more about that side. But also one thing to consider is the filters. So AD provided the filters. It's actually a requirement now to have a filter on a new system. So that isn't included in that 12.7k price because our friends over at AD sent us those.
Do you want to talk about the units?
Just for you guys watching, when we talk about the kitchen price here, all of that price includes the utility, which has got empty space, built-in appliances. And again, that's something that we could have cut corners on and said, no, we don't build it in. But for us, as part of the channel, we have to get these properties, get them to market, get them sold to release the cash, because there's a lot of cash tied up in this property. So then we can move on and then start to do Verified Build 002 and 003. So don't forget, hit subscribe. Stay tuned for Verified Build 002, which is going to hit the channel very shortly. So the tiles provided by our friends over at Marquee Collection, absolutely stunning. And not just the tiles, they also helped us a little bit on what would go well with the theme of the property. I think it's absolutely come out a treat. So when you're going through the property, you can see we've tried to use slightly different styles to be fitting with the room and the colours and bits like that. That's not what me and him have worked on. That's people that are much more, yeah. Anyway, let's go. Where we go next?
Let's go into the downstairs toilet. It's a little bit snug in there, mate, so.
Sounds like an invitation. Before we go into that, can I just point out, I love the colour scheme here. When he said we're going to put a black architrave around the doors, I was like, that's punchy. And when someone says, trust me, I don't. I was like, I want to see like a mood board and everything.
Skeptical, yeah.
I think they did a great job.
Yeah, this whole property looks fantastic just on like the colour, the themes, the contrast. It's been modernised, but it's still kept the character of the property.
I feel like I need to go in.
You go in, mate, you go in. Again, just jumping off of the tiles, we've got more from the Marquise collection there. Love the style of these, I think it works great.
Dan and Luke, they like dry lay all the tiles always across. They've got like an bit of an obsession around like laying perfectly, and some of the best content I've seen on the channel is like, cool, like how to do the tiling, how to all that. What's your smirk for? I
just find it hilarious how you're presenting sat on the toilet.
Sorry.
Tiles are great. Rocker provided all the furniture throughout the toilets and bathrooms. Again,
yeah, just bang on trend. Like, just looks fantastic.
Again, was the price broke down room by room?
No.
Or was it an overall cost?
So the price was broke down overall, but maybe we do that differently for Verified Build 002. Because I think for people watching, it'd be really nice, because people are watching and saying, I really like the style of that room. How much is that room? So it'd be really good to get that done for the next build.
We had the fuse board provided by our friends at Schneider Electric. We had the Easy 9 multi-row compact consumer unit.
So the multi-row is literally what it says in the tin, because there's multiple rows of the board, and that's all about future-proofing the property. So these ways here, as we get, I guess, more advanced with what we put into the house, there's EVs, there's more solar, there's more requirements, we can then have space to fit more products or services into the house as the house gets more electrified.
So Schneider not only provided the Easy 9 multi-row compact consumer unit, they also provided all the sockets and switches throughout both properties. What was the price involved with the rewire and all the gubbins that was involved in that?
So rewire done by our friend Nick Bundy. Really good fun on site. Some of the best content we've shot was with Nick. He's had an absolute blast on the site. And I think he's actually quite transparent with his pricing, and it completely depends on the size of the property and what's needed. So for the full rewire across both of these properties, that's £16,600 is what we've spent on the complete rewire. And that, again, doesn't include like the Lissy range, which are the sockets and switches.
Lease range.
Nice, keep me honest. And the consumer units. So that's largely cable runs and labour, because there's, as you've probably seen on the channel, there's a tremendous amount of work from the heating system and the electrics of just cutting holes, running cable.
Should we move into the living room?
Yep, sounds good.
So we've just made ourselves comfortable in what is the living room. Do you want to talk about the plastering and the challenges that we had when that was taking place?
Well, the biggest challenge, again, interestingly, I said, I was actually wrong earlier. I said everything was done on price work apart from landscaping. The other area was plastering, and it was meant to be done on price work, so fixed price. It ended up moving to become a day rate. And that's because, if you think about when people are doing plastering, they kind of like, and I don't know the correct term, so someone in the comments let me know, but there's like...
Sling and skim.
Sling and skim. So they'll sling, definitely getting cancelled here.
Sling and skim.
They kind of put on their first coat, sling it on, and then the rooms need to dry out. But this property had no heating at that point, and we didn't factor that in.
Barely any electrics either.
Barely any electrics, no heating. So the plasterers were like up against it. And weather's beautiful outside these days, but we were in the thick of this in the winter. Like it was miserable at points, like coming through the year. So they were really up against it. So plastering was not an easy job.
Why was there the overlap? Why didn't we have the electrics and the heating at the time? Was it just we were trying to push too many things at once, or so poor planning?
You kind of nailed it with poor planning. We're a content and community. So we're a content business, we've got an amazing community of trades. This is all learning for us. And I think that's what probably the subscribers should enjoy, which is like we're learning as we go for part of this. The trades are the experts on the site. But I think one thing that I learned on this is actually getting more input from the trades up front in the process. Because for me, I'm like, okay, this happens and this happens and this happens and these things can happen at the same time.
One day, one day, one day.
Exactly, yeah, and all of a sudden something's out of stock and there's a knock-on effect and it dominoes and causes problems. So then all of a sudden the things that you had spaced out start to stack up. And that's what happened here, is I hadn't considered or got counsel from the trades that we work with. Whereas that's what we've done differently for VB002. Like we have significantly staged things out and also sought counsel as to actually what do you need to have done in the property before you start. And thinking of it as like a do not pass go, do not collect £200. Like until that's done, it makes no sense for that to start. Yeah, I think we've just done a lot of learning in this.
And then how much did the plastering cost?
Total £13,300 across both properties. Again, use that ratio 2:1. That gives you an idea of what the house costs. So you're probably looking at about 8.5, 9K for the house.
Feels like a lot, but it was practically every surface in the property, in both properties.
Yeah, it feels like a lot. And I guess people in the comments can agree or disagree because people will know the size of the property. It's like one of those things where I actually felt like I got good value because I saw the hours and the work that was going into that. And that's not all on labour, that includes the materials. And again, it's a very characteristic property, but it gives it that nice finish. It kind of feels like a new homey vibe because the walls are good, it's all clean, it's all square edges. With the character of the property, I think it really sets it off. There's certain things that like we spent money on, you kind of resent it. This isn't one of them. I think that really made it pop.
Shall we go into the kitchen diner area?
Sounds good. Did you say you want them to know just how short I am? Nice, okay.
We will sit down to save my back. I didn't think this was...
No, we didn't. I prefer the view.
Appreciate it. We'll just pretend that we can see each other.
It's okay, mate.
Fantastic. So we're in the dining area / kitchen.
By the way, every time you introduce a room, I feel like it's the first time you've ever said that room.
Well, it's because I've never really known the names of some of the rooms. And again, based on the shape of this property and especially the cottage as well, it's like, is it a living room? Is it a hallway? Is it a kitchen? This is, let's call it the dining room.
Sounds like a plan.
You'd have your dinner here, wouldn't you? Why don't we talk about the floor, I think, because that's probably one of the biggest pieces of work that's been done throughout this property.
Can you remember what the floor was like in here before?
Good question on that one. So I know in the kitchen it was like kind of a screedy concrete type thing. I actually can't remember.
The point there is like it was a mishmash of different floors, and the result of that is everything's at a different level.
Do you want to just explain how we got it level and how we got to the end result?
All Tiernan, and people are going, what's that word you just said? So Tiernan McCorkle was the guy that did all the flooring here. First piece of what he did was screed the floor, so got it all level. And then we've got Kraus flooring down. So we've got standard plank in the house, and as you've seen, we've got herringbone in the cottage. And across all the things that really like bring it to life, I love the floor. And I don't know whether it's because before it was just dark and dingy and dirty and it just didn't add any value, but seeing it all the way through the property, it's beautiful flooring, looks great. Again, had some amazing sponsors and partners on the verified build. This is Kraus Flooring, amazing company, amazing collection of flooring. And in terms of cost, because I know you're gonna get there, doesn't include the cost of the flooring, the actual planks themselves, but to level, which is the screed and the materials, and then the labor to lay all of the flooring. And I can find you the square meterage of that, because that might help bring it to life a little bit for people that are watching. It was £6,700 across both properties. So you're looking at 4.5K for the house.
That's basically just the labour to get it fit, right?
Labour and the materials on the screed.
Something that's probably important for people watching as well is, I know we're almost kind of avoiding the fact that we're not avoiding it, but we're avoiding how much the materials cost because we technically didn't pay for them because they were provided by the sponsors. But if they're looking for prices on that, the best thing to do is actually speak to their installer, whether it's landscaping, plumber, everything like that. When it comes to the materials, speak to your trade professional because they'll be able to get usually sharper pricing as well online.
Completely agree. I'd say if you're a homeowner looking to get work done, don't go down the rabbit hole of actually I'll source all the materials myself and then I'll just get the trade to do labour only. Firstly, if you've hired the right person, you should always trust them. And I'd rather a homeowner spend more time up front finding the right trade. And then what can happen and often happens if homeowners go down this route of trying to source materials themselves, if you're missing bits, let's just say you under quantify the materials, then all of a sudden the trades on site can't finish the job, but they've got to charge you for their time of being on the job still, so they have to go away and come back, and it creates this friction. I'd rather move all the accountability across to the trade and get a single price to get a job done. And also, like, if there's a part that fails, let's just say you're getting a heating system and something's leaking. If you've bought the materials, you're actually opening yourself up for you having to find a replacement for that part and go and sort that out. Whereas if the trade's done it, again, it's just having that peace of mind that everything is being done for a fixed price, normally heating system as an example. And whether it works, fails, products don't work, whatever it is, you pay the price, you get it done, and it's the trade's accountability to actually make sure that the materials are right, they've got the right quantity, and they deliver it in the time that they've agreed. I would 100% always recommend take that approach compared to this. I'll get materials because I found a way to save an extra 4% online. Just get the trade. Spend more time finding the right trade and then trust them to do the job.
So we're in bedroom 2 now. We won't go into the other bedrooms, but I think just as a general conversation, things that we need to cover off is things like the carpet from the stairs up to all the bedrooms, because that wasn't done by Tiernan, that was a separate company. Yep. And then P&D, because we're kind of just getting into the pretty things now.
How nice is the paint?
It looks fantastic. Yeah, the lick paint is amazing.
Again, that's Sarah at Stage Spaces, who just kind of comes in here, because we're all coming in here as like, how much is it? We're gonna get all these materials, bricks, paint, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yeah, but take a step back and what's the design? How's it gonna feel? What's it gonna look like? Which, by the way, I'm so appreciative now we're coming to sell it because it adds so much, just elevates the whole thing.
And just on that, by the way, just as a little sneak peek for the next build, is the considerations for how the place looks is actually being brought in earlier on in the process.
What we said downstairs, like all the preparation that we should have done and we ended up trying to do during the process. Like Sarah came in mid-process, she's now in like up front. Here's what we need to do.
Mid-process is a strong term as well, just kind of came in while it was happening.
Do you know, by the way, when it comes to P&D, like one of my favourite things, these have come to life again. Like the cutting in around this, and it's such a small detail for me, but I remember just coming up here and seeing like the craftsmanship of how do they bring the wood to life, cut this in, and I just loved this. The
contrast with all the colours, again, it's kept it modern, light, but also the character of the buildings remained. And I think, like you say, the wood beams, we were saying downstairs how it was a dark and dingy place. The colours that have been chosen have just made this whole place come alive.
I think it was probably not necessarily just about the output, but seeing the work and the care. Do you know when like we come into this place and we desperately care about the content and how it's going to finish? Working with trades that also have that same level of care is what we've tried to do across the builds. That's really rewarding. And when you end up paying the bill, it's like you don't resent it because you've seen like the TLC that's gone into the work.
Speaking of prices, to paint this place,
Yep.
head to toe, price, cost.
In terms of just the labour, pure labour, across both properties, it was £10,800. So you're looking at about 6K, 6 and a bit for the house.
Yeah, again, feels like a lot, but because it was around it as well, there was still a lot of prep. Like you don't just, you think you just sling some paint on a wall, but there's actually more prep. Like for example, the wood throughout hasn't just had a coat of paint on it. It's been sanded down to bring it back out.
The prep's all the work. And that was a learning for, I think for both of us, which is the amount of work, the sanding down, the smoothing off before they even start putting paint on the walls. And by the way, that is a lot of money, and that's without the paint. And good paint is not cheap. But again, it's like one of those things that has to be done properly, because poor P&D would just take away from the whole build. You can finesse everything, but if you don't do a good job on the aesthetics, the stuff a customer's going to see when they're buying the property, you've wasted your time. And by the way, in terms of like getting a price, even if you found someone that you know, like and trust, I would always go and get quotes. But the important thing is you're comparing apples to apples. Like go and find 3 professionals that you get a sense of what's the process, what you're gonna do, and get comfortable. Then you can compare their process and price. Just make sure you're comparing apples to apples when getting work done.
Yeah, sometimes something might appear cheaper, but there's maybe a stage missing or a component missing, whatever the job is, you get priced. Before we head upstairs, just a quick reveal of the cylinder.
He's laughing because he's done this 3 times, so I keep forgetting what I'm gonna. He's like, you're meant to say something about this.
Tell me you love these doors again.
I love these doors. Yeah, I do love these doors. But more importantly, I love more than the doors. I love the Megaflow cylinder. So we've got a pressurized cylinder in here from Megaflow. I guess one of the considerations here, and go and watch the content from Chris, where we're actually talking about the heating system. But because of the size of the property, this is needed to make sure that we've got enough capacity of hot water. There's a couple of taps, a couple of sinks running at the same time. Wonderful system provided by our friends over at Megaflow, and you can just see, which is pretty cool, just the complexity around the pipe work that's needed when you're installing something like this. So if you think about it, from every point in the house, from all the rads, and I guess it's been really fun for me watching this come to life, because when you see a rad on a wall, you don't appreciate that is connected to a system. That system is then connected to the boiler and the cylinder. So all these pipes throughout the whole house, it sounds obvious, but all connected and has to be installed by a person.
Yeah, and then when you think about all the joists and everything like that, that's got to run through and around. And by the way, we completely overlooked it, but this hole hasn't always been here, so we also opened this up as well. So this before was just a little door, it's a little old door.
Yeah, so we opened that up, put a lintel in, and I think it's just one of the things about the property, and as you would have seen across the cottage, is there's just not a huge amount of space. The rooms are big, but there's not a huge amount of storage space. So you can see in this room specifically, it looks beautiful, nice and airy, but there is no cupboards and drawers and bits like that. So we wanted to create a space to keep it feeling this airy and open. So we want to try and, actually there's some storage space in there.
How much was the staging for the house?
In terms of the staging, and I do need to caveat it slightly, because I don't want people going, well, that's how much you charge, verify bill, that's how much it should cost us. It's a similar size property. We've got a really strong relationship with Sarah, and what she does, she offers us a discounted rate, because while we're here, we produce content for Sarah. We love working with her. She's amazing at what she does. But we paid across both properties £4,700. And that gives us, Sarah comes down, scopes the place out, measures up, comes and stages it. A couple of days, people come down and just drop on, stage it all. We get it for 6 weeks. And then we can extend it on a monthly basis, I believe it is.
Let's go upstairs. Come on, mate. Just mute my laughter.
Don't mute it, keep it.
If memory serves me, previously this was somewhat of a room, but nothing like this. There was no ensuite, which we can talk about the price of that.
You came up the stairs, and where Leanna is, that was kind of that was boxed off. There was a doorway, and then the rest of it was just an open room. There was no key lights, felt very dark, felt very low. And then we kind of came up in here and was trying to work out like what to do. And it just felt like an opportunity just to have a bit of fun and try and like play with this room. And then spoke to our friends over at Keylight, Throwback, used to work there. Hey guys. No one that I knew was I was speaking to, it was all new people.
Who's this?
Sorry. And we just wanted to, I guess, try and have a play and put some roof windows in. Once we put the roof windows in, which actually went in very early because of the roof. It came in much earlier than we were going to. Because the roof got done, the roofer was in and put the Keylight roof windows in. As soon as they went in, it just brought the whole place to life. It was just like, wow, this could be stunning. And then naturally made this into the master, put the balustrade in, We've got the ensuite with all the rocker furniture in there.
So when we're looking at the key light roof windows, obviously they were provided to us.
Yep.
But do we have like a ballpark of how much that cost? Because I know it was thrown in with the whole roof at the time. Do we have like an estimate of how much something like that can cost?
I would say, well, I guess one of the joys of Keylight is you can actually go across to Keylight's website and you can price stuff up yourself. So I believe these are what's called a CPO4 window, and CPO4 simply just means center pivot. So the window pivots from the center compared to top hung, which is a TH window. So
these are big windows.
These are big windows. So for context, if you go to the website, we've got 3 CPO4s, so these 3 are the same. Go and have a look and you can price it up. And just be mindful that when you go onto like the website, across any of the work that you do at your home, like the material price is not indicative to how much the job's going to cost. Because if you think about this, we had 2 layers of scaffolding around the property because we were getting the roof done. It made sense. We already had scaffolding on, the tiles were coming off. But if you're looking at your roof saying I would like some roof windows installed, there's a few considerations. Find a professional fitter, roof window fitter. I'd personally recommend Keylight. I think they're an amazing team, amazing company. Ask them for a quote, get comfortable with the installer, and then trust them. Simple as that.
We mentioned it downstairs, but didn't cover the cost. Carpet, from the bottom of the stairs all the way up to quite literally the top of the house. Price.
Again, across both properties. Carpet, which is underlay, which is underlay. Don't know where that came from.
Underlay.
Carpet. Underlay, carpet, and the fitting, £5,300 across both properties. So safe to assume 3.5k-ish for the house.
So this was a room that was pretty underutilized. We implemented the ensuite. That's quite a lot of work. There's stud work, plastering, then obviously everything that's gone inside of it, tiles, furniture, things like that. Can you give me the numbers again on how much it costs to build an ensuite into this property?
So I've got the numbers for the ensuite as if the shell was already there, and I'll have to give you the carpentry numbers because naturally, like you said, there's been some stud walls built. This wasn't here in the first place, but assume that wall's there and we basically...
Was that done by 2 separate people then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So ensuite, we're looking at without the tiles, because we've got the Ibiza White Marquee Collection tiles in there, you're looking at £3,200 for supply and fit of the materials. Because we're on the top floor, we've had to get a waste stack from here because there wasn't one here already because there was no ensuite, there was no waste requirement. So to get that out of that wall, cord out, and then all the way down into the main waste stack, that was another 700 quid. So to get this done...
That seems like a lot.
Well, don't forget, like we're elevated, so to do it safely, we need a cherry picker. Yeah. There's other associated costs to it. You've got the plastic, you've got the team, you've got the cherry picker, it all adds up. So call it 4K for that ensuite without the stud work, so you can probably looking at 4.5, 4.8K.
Just knowing sort of how much it was for like a bathroom in the cottage, it's interesting that it's around the same ballpark basically for a small to medium sized bathroom. It's roughly the same price, whatever you do.
Yeah, I'm not a bathroom fitter. I couldn't tell you how they do their price work, but I guess irrelevant to the size of the room, you're still installing similar products. You're still putting a shower in, you're still putting a toilet in, you're still putting whatever it is. Like you're still putting the same furniture in. I guess the difference is the square meterage of the tiles that are going in the property, because that's quite a time-consuming activity.
Let's go check out the bathroom. Well, this is bigger than the ensuite that we just spoke about.
Well, interestingly, it's bigger, but I just checked, and in terms of like pounds and pence, it's nearly the same price to get it installed. And again, I'm not the fitter, but my assumption is because there is existing pipe work to this was always a bathroom. There was existing pipe work and there was existing noggings and all that, like everywhere they need to run their pipes. That was already here basically, and don't get me wrong, it's been refreshed, but it was replacing a bathroom, that was creating a new bathroom. So pounds and pence, this ends up about the same, just shy of 4K to get all this done without the tiles.
Do you remember one of the nasty surprises we found when we took the floor up in here?
No.
So in this corner, the floor was not attached to the wall. So we had to get joists installed back in to make it safe, because quite literally this was like a floating floor.
That's like a great example of when you're buying a property, there's so many, I can't remember if it was on this video or when we're at the cottage, where it's like, whenever you've built a budget, add 25%. Yeah. Because material prices, just as well as unknowns, and it's like these, we call them like unknown unknowns. It's like we don't know what we don't know. That was a great example of it. It's like, hold on, that's another 600 quid or 500 quid, whatever the number is. And in the big scheme of things, you can say, well, the property's collectively worth like 900k. You go, well, what's 500? They all add up.
Yeah.
And when you've got a budget and you're trying to hit a certain level of profit, it just quickly erodes. As I said, this became like the money pit because we kept finding things. And what happens occasionally when a homeowner is dealing with a trade and it's like, oh, there's this extra bill. I think we're in a luxurious position. Don't get me wrong, it was the money pit, but we know the trades, we've got a relationship up with them, we've found people that we know, like and trust. So we just had confidence that actually to do best practice, this is what it takes. I can understand from a homeowner's perspective why it can often feel quite frustrating, which is, why didn't you know that before? Why isn't that included in the price? But sometimes if a trade's doing some work, they don't know what's behind the wall. They don't know what's under the floorboards. They have to expose it and see. I think that's why it's important to make sure you find someone, I keep banging on about it, find a trade, build the trust and just let them do their best work. You've got to get that right up front because there will be some nasties that show up, but it stops that horrible tension if you get someone you go, that's not good, but there's a trust element, you just get on with it.
Well, that's the difference between a quote and an estimate as well. A good trade's going to know there could be some challenges here. I don't know what I'm going to find. I'm going to estimate a price, but then there's considerations because it's an old property, the brickwork might not be right or whatever else they might find.
It's 100% like a great build and understanding actually like how an estimate or a quote is built and what the unknowns are.
Let's head down to the kitchen.
What are you doing? I can jump up and down in it.
It's a low ceiling.
It is a low ceiling.
It's a low ceiling. Oh, let me
throw back to your bump camera.
Oh my God.
This takes us to the back garden. Yeah, don't come through this door. Yep.
Back at it. That's why I wore a hat a lot. So we're nearly...
This is one of my favourite rooms, by the way.
It's a really interesting space because again, this was a very, low ceilings, poor lighting, the whole place felt very dark, dank almost. We lightened the place up with paint, the flooring, which we've already spoke about.
Not just to paint the tiles as well, like the choice of tiles just to bring the light out, the choice of cabinets, choice of just everything in here was trying to work out how do we keep it like a cottagey feel, but by trying to brighten it up a little bit, because I remember it was like super dark. We're now letting some light through the door and we'll get to the door in a little bit. Little quick build on that, which is, sorry, this is not good for the cameras because they're probably going to point at each other, but I'm going to keep talking. Like this space here, remember this used to be a wall.
Yeah.
And we just decided, actually, how do we get as much natural light into the kitchen? So we built this out, made this nice little functional section.
And that's such a small detail as well, because it's not particularly like a wide gangway or anything like that, but just opening it up and creating this island that we've got here makes it feel like less of a bottleneck as
it's
well.
It's like a cottagey open plan, like together. It's like a really nice hybrid of, actually, you can be here and someone can be sat there, and it can still create this like downstairs family vibe.
And you've even got a space for maybe a small table if you wanted to. I know they've put a plant in the corner there, but...
Oh, 100%, it's just part of the staging process just to keep it feeling bright. So, love the kitchen here. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think they've done a great job. Tiles look great. You're gonna ask me, aren't you?
How much did it cost?
This kitchen was £7,650, excluding the tiles. What's your views on that? What's the Harry verdict? It's confusing you, isn't it?
I feel like the cottage is technically, I don't want to say bigger, but more kitchen, counter, units.
Well, it's interesting you say the word counter because a lot of the associated cost of these kitchens is the quality of the work. We've gone for a really high quality worktop.
Yeah, of course.
So like the meterage of worktop is significant. Also, the work done behind to, I guess, square off the walls, scribe into the brick. There's just probably some consideration around that. And then we've paid an additional 2.1k for the utility. Across here.
Yes, I forget. It's not just this, is what we're talking about.
Well, that's on top.
Oh, sorry,
That's on
okay.
top. Yeah, so you're looking at basically across the utility, and here you're looking at like 9.8k, everything supplied, fit, installed. How's that rate on your system?
Yeah, not bad because again, bigger house, like just, I don't know, it seems to make sense for the property. It's oddly, based on the property, the budget feels about right on that. Before we head outside, one reminder is when we were speaking about the heating before, one thing we didn't mention was the smart heating that we installed as well. So we could have just gone with bog standard, stat on the wall, just a regular rads, normal TRVs that you dial up yourself. We went one level higher. Shout out to Wiser for providing all the smart stats. But again, we covered it in the cottage, but we've now got smart heating control. Again, economical boiler, zone control on the heating.
Zone control is a key one. And for people that don't know what zone control is, that's I guess back in the day, thermostat would be on the wall and you'd raise like the whole ground floor or even the whole house to a
Well, you'd,
certain
you'd have
temperature.
the stat on the wall, and that dictates the entire temperature of the property.
And that's what you're raising every room, the temperatures to, like, which is a problem. Well, you might just be in the living room, want the living room nice and warm and cozy. Zone control lets you do that. And in a world where energy bills are top of mind for every single person, yes, it's a bit of investment to get it done because you have to get TRVs for every rad. But what that's actually doing, it's allowing the radiator to dial up and down the temperature and to let that room heat or not, to make sure your boiler's not overworking for the sake of it, costing you a bunch of gas. So bit of investment, yes, worth it, every penny.
Perfect. Let's go outside and
Talk about a door. It's weird we're just actually going to have a talk about a door, but it's worth talking about. This is probably the one door frame.
One door to rule them all.
One ring to rule them all.
This, I'm not pointing out it because it's glass, but this was like a tactical decision because before this, it was a big, beautiful door, don't get me wrong, it was like the character was there. But this allows someone to have the nice kind of like the barn doors inside, have them open and have light from here. Because remember, that's quite low.
You know what's funny? I completely
Forgot what was
just
there.
not even considered the big pane of glass in the door. Like
That was why we did
because
it.
the door, I mean, the door you can already see is a hell of a shape, and completely just didn't even think about the consideration of having the big glass in there to let the light through.
That's now why it feels so light in there.
Yeah.
Is because, and don't get me wrong, the doors on here were stunning, real character, and it was actually a consideration as to whether we leave it.
Yeah, because it was double.
Because we could have just replaced that inside door.
Well, I remember we were talking about removing those inside or just making
Yeah,
one door.
one
to
of them
separate.
needs to be secure, basically.
Yeah.
So that was a consideration, but shape of the door, one option to keep it simple. We could have blocked this off and made it square. There's so much character to this. Like, it kind of keeps the property look stunning. And when I spoke to Glazing Hub and they came up and they're like, what are you doing with the door? I was like, I want that exact same shape, but in that style. And I just saw him go, I'll speak to someone. I'll speak to someone. And he did an amazing job.
Costing for the door, I guess, was this separate price?
33K, and that includes the door.
I feel like if it's getting included, you want to make all the doors like that. Just get it all thrown
Get
in.
the value. By the way, I haven't actually walked up here and looked back at the house. I know we're wrapping this up and I'm not sure if they're rolling, but I'm pretty proud of that. Because I remember what it was like when we first came here. Hey guys, and thanks for stopping by for this verified build. You probably would have appreciated me getting some counsel off you before we committed.
There's definitely a shot from around here where you've tried speaking and you can just see the whole roof just off.
Even little things like the back of the house. And that was including the P&D cost. That.
Oh, the outside as well.
Yeah, the cream, and we went for this really punchy, dark staining of the wood. And it just brings it all to life.
Well, it was kind of like that anyway, right? It obviously just
very tired
faded.
looking. Yeah, and there were some bits that were chipping away and breaking away, but it just, yeah, pretty proud of it looking at it now.
So, the $1 million or $500,000 question, depending on what it actually sold for or what it actually sells for, how much are we in the hole and how much are we hoping to make on it?
Yeah, all in all on this property, we're in for about 470K.
For the house?
So the house and the builds, as well as some associated costs around planning and just some of the planning applications and just some of the administration around it. So about 470. And this currently isn't sold, but this is on the market for 595.
Profit?
Not profit until it's sold. Guys, let me quickly jump in here because that price that you just saw is no longer accurate. We put this on the market 595. Naturally, when you go into market, we're trying to command as high a price as possible. It's a pretty unique property, but we've come up against one, increased competition in the area in Marchington. Normally, when we bought this property, there's been no properties for sale. All of a sudden, ours goes on the market, so does 3 others. Also, generally, the market's quite soft right now, and we're, I guess, pushing on to try and get this sold, turn it into cash to allow us to open up more opportunities for future verified builds. So as a quick update, 595, put a line through that. It's now on the market for 565, and if you're watching this, maybe even open to offers. Back to the video. Like right now, the market is interesting. I think when we got into this property, the market was in a very different position to where we are now. And by the time this goes live, we don't know where we'll be, but if it sells for that, brilliant. And again, people can go, yeah, you made a great profit, but we've got a lot of other on costs around this, production team and all this good stuff. But if I was doing it purely as a house renovation, which I think is a nice way to work out, have we done a good job? Have we not overpaid? Have we kept it clean? Yes, we could have saved some money, but we're trying to give a really elevated finish and feel to the whole thing. That'll be a really good success for us.
Thank you for joining us on this tour and breakdown of Verify Build 001. It has been a hell of a journey. So much so that Adam's left.
Well, can I just add some context to that? Is like all the content, all the stuff that we're making, you've got an amazing creative team. Like, I think I just had a conversation with you one day and it was like, you are just brilliant on camera, you tell a great story and you're a good narrator with the trade and all that good stuff. And that's why I can verify build 002, which we've got secured. So if you do enjoy this content, make sure you hit subscribe. And we've completely changed the game plan here. We've gone for something a lot more relatable. We're going to be able to share the pounds and pence of every room of the whole project because we've changed the process. We're going to try and not cause problems for you and your team around 4 things happening at the same time. Where do I point the camera? But it's been a tremendously fun project. Really good feedback from the community and the audience that we're building here. Trying to build the #1 home renovation channel. And I think we've done a pretty good job as a start.
So if you want to see the progress of Verify Build 002, subscribe to the channel and we will see you in the very next video.